What's going on, everybody? I am doing some Q&A live streaming. Just gonna kind of answer some questions that have been asked in like the comments. Also, I'm gonna answer your questions here tonight. So we're just gonna kind of hang out and do all of that. So let's we'll just hang out. I'm gonna kind of go through a couple of the things that are in comments while people are filtering in and. So let me basically, one of the things that I do want to address is that a lot of people talk about Thrawn's death being foreshadowed by the Bendu. And these questions can be about anything. They can be about just Star Wars in general. They can be about gaming in general. They can be about Star Wars gaming. They can be Armada, Imperial Assault, X-Wing questions. You can ask whatever you like. But I want to point out that Thrawn's death was not foreshadowed by the Bendu. The Bendu merely foreshadowed Thrawn's defeat. It's very important to note that he said defeat. And while you might think that they were talking about his death, mostly because he died in the Legends, in the EU, his defeat could be something different. It might just be shame. Maybe he gets demoted, or maybe he just has his first, military loss, or something. I think they chose the word defeat. It could be that it was just because it was a kids' show. Could be for, who knows, just about anything else. But I think the fact that they said that is important. Shadowcat asks me, did I know that, I think you mean Togruta were cannibals? And I did not know that. And I don't know if that's true. I can't imagine Ahsoka eating her sister or anything like that, or her mom. But yes, I don't know. That's a little weird. Sometimes people say things and I just gotta wonder if that's even true. But Grand Admiral Renwood asks about that cargo ship that was in the trailer for Rebels, and I think that what we have seen that one before. I don't remember what season specifically it was in, but I'm pretty sure we have definitely seen that one. We have definitely. So let me find some more questions here. I'm just kind of scrolling through. Wanted to ask or answer. Because I get a lot of them. I'm getting a lot more comments nowadays, and I apologize because I don't get to everybody's questions. I know I've been asked by a couple of people what I decided to go with for Legion, because Legion is coming out the end of this month. We're in March now, so that's cool. And I think it's most cost effective to just go like out of the core set. Yeah, I'm going to start with an ATST and a snowspeeder. And I'll eventually get a second one of each one, but I don't, they're so big and they're such point sinks that I'm not going to be fielding doubles of them initially. I'll only do that for like fringe lists. But I will be doing at least 2 core sets. It makes the most sense to get 3 core sets because I don't really need those upgrades that come with those other trooper packs. But at the same time, I also do unboxings, and I think there's a little part of me that feels like it would be incomplete if I didn't also unbox the trooper packs. So I think I'm gonna do, in each of the core set expansions, and they do have alternate sculpts, so I'm probably gonna splurge and be slightly less than cost effective, and I'll end up getting 2 core sets and then 1 of each expansion. So I'll actually only have 5 Rebel Troopers and 5 Stormtroopers. I won't actually have 6 of those. So there's that, I suppose. What's going on, Swolsey? Swolsey asks, what's with that Twitter vote by FFG? I think they're just trying to gauge popularity, maybe just to engage the people a little bit. Who knows? I don't know if there's anything really to it, but not that many players of these games use Twitter. So, there are a good number of people that do. But when I talk to people, like when I'm at a game store and I'm gaming with people, I don't see that many people being like, yeah, so I was hanging out on Twitter, just looking to see what everybody's doing on Twitter. Like I feel like Twitter is something that people only really use if they have something to promote. Like I use Twitter, but I'm usually on there either to promote the channel, or to B, talk to other people who are promoting their products and also promote the channel. Or sometimes I'm, trying to get Pablo Hidalgo or Andy Gutierrez to respond because I love both of them very much and they're my favorite people on Twitter. But that's like, I don't know. And sometimes you kind of enter contests too. So some people have a Twitter account just to like, retweet this to get more entries into some contest and things like that. So I think they're just trying to see who's out there. I don't think that vote represents the actual population of these games, but I could be wrong. I certainly think that there are more people playing Armada than playing Imperial Assault, but I could be totally wrong. At least competitively, I feel like there's more Armada events than Imperial Assault events, or at least like trying to get people to show. I don't know, but that's something that's going to differ from area to area. And I've put a lot into trying to promote Armada in Orlando, so I see more Armada people because of that. And I see less Imperial. I still do see Imperial Assault players, and I just haven't played Imperial Assault in a long time, at least competitively. I haven't played like in the tournament in over a year. It's kind of warm out here, so I've got my water. So let's see. What else do we got? I got to scroll through some more comments. All right. A Rebel medium ship with an ordnance slot would allow ordnance pods to be used on a hopefully more maneuverable ship. I'm pretty sure ordnance pods is large ship only, and that was from Jack Leland. I've got to make sure now because you got me questioning myself. I don't have, as much as I try to remember all the cards in Armada, it's hard to remember all of them. Ordnance pods is medium or large ship only. So yeah, a medium ship. Now, yeah, that'd be great. A Rebel medium ship with ordnance would be awesome. I hope we get that. I just want to see another medium ship for Rebels. And now that we're basically have what seems to be confirmation that we're getting dreadnoughts recanonized, I think it's possible we could potentially get the Rebels using them. But a lot of that really depends on how they depict them in the finale. If it's something that the Rebels can get a hold of, then we can do a true Katana fleet and make it a dual faction ship. I really hope they do that. Oh, that would be so cool. That would be so cool. Yeah, Dreadnought. Nick Drinkall had said Dreadnought and cards similar to the 7th Fleet, but the Katana fleet. I think that would be magnificent. I really hope that that happens. Ziegel, what's going on? Asks, what are you most excited about Legion? What am I most excited about regarding Legion, or is Legion the thing I'm most excited about? Because I'm excited about a lot of things. I'm excited about all the rest of the Lords of Hellas stuff showing up. I'm excited to play GKR Heavy Hitters and some of the Kickstarter games I've gotten recently. I'm excited to finally dig into Green Horde here for Zombicide. But I am very excited about Legion. Why specifically? I can finally put all the terrain I've made to use. Really looking forward to getting that. I'm really looking forward to being able to try and do some bat reps for you guys. Trying to record some games. And like there's a really cool store not far from me called Sci-Fi City. And they have... What about the game makes me most excited about the game? It reminds me a lot of Armada as far as how tactically it is. But the biggest thing I think that really makes Legion stand out is, there's a lot of little things, but for me, it's the way terrain changes your game. So what I mean by that is, think of a game like X-Wing or Armada. Like X-Wing, a typical 100-point versus 100-point duel is pretty much always the same. Some things change, like where you put your obstacles can kind of change the game a little bit, but it's very much like almost all games are the same. Armada changes it up a little bit with objectives, and so games can differ quite a bit, but they don't change that much, but they do change. Legion adds a whole nother layer of complexity because it has the cards, like, it has objectives, and so those are going to change, what you want to do. Like maybe you need to keep your guys all together, or you need to split your guys up, or something like that. But the way terrain is going to be in your games of Legion totally change everything. Like you might have long range guys, you're range 4, stormtroopers, and trying to be like snipers and try to take that out. But there's big blocking terrain in the middle which nullifies them, or it doesn't necessarily nullify them, but changes what they need to do. Like now they need to try and climb up and get a vantage point, and you've got your first ever actual 3-dimensional game. And the irony behind this is bizarre because X-Wing should have been a 3-dimensional game, right? But those pegs really mean nothing, right? So, like in the games that actually take place in 3D space, we play on a strictly 2D surface, like they bump into each other. But the game that's really on the ground, that's fought in 2D, we're actually playing in 3D because you literally have people directly above one another. And so in some of the terrain that I've made, like I have this cave, for example, that's got like 3 different layers to it, like this Wampa cave. You can go inside the cave, you can climb up and get above, and then there's a third option, like a balcony above that. So multiple layers of terrain adds such a cool complexity to this game, and I freaking love it. So I'm really anxious to get these minis, start priming them, start painting them. And getting some cool bat reps, and then the more I play, the more it's gonna make me want to come up with more terrain too. So I really enjoy making terrain as well. So that's kind of fun. DJ Turbo asks, think we'll ever see Force Awakens and Last Jedi ships for Armada? Absolutely, but I think it'll be a long time. The reason I say that is there's a lot of Galactic Civil War stuff still coming out, and I think there's a lot of space to fill within there. We're going to see some new stuff in Solo. We're going to see new stuff from Rebels. So we just saw the Dreadnought for Rebels. That's going to show up for the Empire. Hopefully also for the Rebellion, but at least for the Empire. We've got a new ship, an Arrestor cruiser that's going to be coming out in Solo. So there's a lot of new ships, capital ships that'll work in in Armada that are already in the time frame of the game. And the problem is for them to start doing a Force Awakens type stuff, or sequel trilogy, we'll call it sequel trilogy stuff. There's just not enough out there yet. There's not enough for the First Order, because the Dreadnought, you could potentially do that Dreadnought, but really the only ship you've got, is the one big Star Destroyer they have. You don't have any other classes of vessel that are really feasible for a 400-point game. I'm expecting that by the time we have Episode 9, we're going to see a more flushed out First Order Navy, and we're going to see I'm hoping Episode 9 ends up with this huge space battle where the entire new rebellion faces off against the entirety of the First Order, and when they're about to lose, all of a sudden the galaxy's forces come together, and you have like all of the all of the ragtag bunches, like Ghost Crew from here, Scum and Villainy from here, independent Mon Calamari forces here, Celestians over here, everybody coming up with their ships, and Bothans, and everybody just rising up with whatever they have, and fighting against the First Order. But you'll see like all the rest of the First Order ships. Once we have that flushed out, I think it'll work. Because I definitely think they're doing a lot more with space battles. Episode 8 was great for that. Say whatever you will about what you thought about the plot, or not being totally satisfied with Episode 8. Forget about that. Let's look at just the ships. It was great amount of ships in there. We had 4 brand new Rebel capital ships in that movie. So I was very pleased with that from the potential of gaming. So, but I think it's gonna have to wait till Episode 9. The Prahatok Ingium predicting Prahatok gunship in the next wave of Armada. Absolutely. It was in the art. So one of the really cool things is, so FFG had this 2008 Worlds article up, and they took it down, but one of the things for Armada was you could win like this giant poster of Profundity art. And there's a Dornian gunship. So for those of you who don't know, the Brahatok and the Dornian gunship, same thing. They just have 2 different names. The Dornian gunship is its slang name. It's actually a Brahatok class cruiser, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's right there in the art. So they usually don't have something being kind of like centrally focused in art unless it's kind of on their radar. So and we knew that was coming anyway. It was in the original movies. It's been in Rogue One. It's been in Rebels. It's definitely coming. I think it'll be in the next wave, as a matter of fact. Usually when something is featured, that means it's coming up very soon. Speaking of Armada and X-Wing from Gregory Madichuk. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Speaking of Armada and X-Wing, have you looked into getting anything from Mel Miniatures from Shapeways? I have, as a matter of fact. He has great stuff. My problem is I don't want to get something that I know is coming out or that I think is going to come out. Like, I really wanted to get the Executor. But of course, it was going to be very, very expensive. So I would hate to spend like $300 or some, several $100s on a beautiful, beautiful Executor. And then in 6 months, FFG says, oh, they're putting out an Executor. And crap, what am I going to do with 2 Executors? Especially if they're not going to, they might not all be the same scale. So what I have actually thought about doing, and granted, some people might be fine with that, because there's things you could do. You could trash one and, or there, you could homebrew stuff for it. There's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of uses for that. Or just display one and play with another one. Display whichever one looks better. And that's a tough one because Mel makes great stuff, but so does FFG. So, but they're the alternate sculpts of certain things I've really liked. And so I've thought about getting, some of the alternate versions of, which ones was I really looking at? Like there are some really cool ones I was thinking about. I think like the Nebulon with the wings. I think that's actually the Salvation. There's some alternate hammerheads, alternate sculpts of those. The Raider from the Raider from Battlefront 2. I was definitely thinking about doing that because I don't know if they're going to do that one just yet, but that would be really cool. Mr. Pete reviews the meaning of my screen name. The meaning of my screen name is I played EverQuest 2 for a long time, and I don't even know, like, this. It says $2. I don't know if you just donated to my channel, if I'm even eligible for that, but if so, thank you. It's the first time I've ever seen that show up. But yeah, the meaning of my screen name, I used to play EverQuest and saw this really big ogre, and he was awesome, and he was our like a main tank for this guild. I joined my first raid guild, and it made me think, boy, I should have been an ogre. So then when EverQuest 2 came out, I made an ogre, and I called him Crabbok. And it was meant to be something big and mean sounding, and I've never even seen Super Chat. Like I've seen it, but nobody's ever used it before. So color me ignorant, I suppose. Well, thank you. But so the home city of ogres in EverQuest is called Ogok, and I thought of somebody who would be big, maybe who was born in Ogok, that was a little bit grumpy and would go off to war, and so I thought maybe he was crabby, like grumpy, and so that's where I came up with Crabbok. Sounded like he was from Ogok, and he's a little bit crabby, and he was a big guy, and and so I played that character for a long time, and I was a really good bruiser in EverQuest 2, and I ended up getting some recognition, and Sony flew me out to a couple of their conventions, and we did a lot of, had several years of high-end raiding. I met my wife during my first raid night, or like that same day, and so that was weird. So she ended up like raiding with me, and I played EverQuest 2 very competitively until I had my second kid, something like that. Yeah. All right, let's scroll up and get some. Oh, also, what do I want to see recanonized? I want to see the Eclipse. Well, it's already, the name of the Eclipse has already been recanonized. I want to see Mara Jade recanonized. I want to see Talon Card and the Wild Card recanonized, especially for X-Wing's purposes, so we can get a Corvette, a really nice combat effective Corvette for X-Wing. I think those are probably at the top of the list. I would like to see Star Killer, Galen Merrick recanonized, and Juno Eclipse. And that stuff, even if his power level gets toned down significantly. Let me scroll up. I missed a couple of things. Let's see. Green Lantern 223. You just got into Armada in October. You're tempted to jump into Legion. Do I think it would be a good idea to jump on for the start of Legion? I think it'd be a great idea. If you don't mind having to glue your stuff together and then paint it, you don't have to paint it, but your pieces they're going to come in pieces though. So if you're okay with like a mini wargaming game like that, then yeah. And it's one of those games too where if you find somebody else that's playing and you want to keep the cost down, you each buy a core set. You give that person all of your Imperial stuff and you take all of their Rebel stuff. You know, you're closer to having a full-fledged army. So like a lot of people did that with Rune Wars too. DJ Turbo, yeah, I don't think they'll do First Order and Resistance just like as add-ins for Armada until they have more stuff to do, because there's now a whole lot of different stuff they could add for the Resistance, but really only one ship that they can add for the First Order, so the balance would be totally out of whack. But I mean, I would be fine with it. I hope so. So let's see. Dalton Falks, you're painting Empire ships for Armada, and you're curious what paints you could use to match the gray. That's a really good question. I don't have a good answer for you because most of all of my stuff I mix. I use several different shades of Citadel gray, and none of them I don't think are perfectly right. But I've been using an airbrush lately, and so like you can kind of sometimes I'll fade. Like I'll start off a little darker. And I'll just spray it, and then I'll add a little bit of like a drop of white, and I'll just slowly lighten it up, another drop of white, and then I end up like with maybe a fade effect or a cross fade effect, stuff like that. Let's see about the old Republic era ships. All right, what about some of the old Republic era ships for battle stations? Or the battle stations. I would love old Republic stuff in Armada, and I would love battle stations too. That's another thing I was thinking of getting from Mel's Miniatures. Unless that's a follow-up to the same thing. I love the idea of some of the battle stations. I would really like something kind of like that you see in Battlefront 2 or in Rogue One, where you get like a station where you can actually dock your Star Destroyers to, because I have them all on the shelf behind me. But man, like if I had a station like that for display purposes that I could, because I've got so many ISDs now. I've got 4 ISDs, and I'll probably at some point get another Chimera. So then I'm gonna have 5 flipping ISDs, and so if I could like have them all like that, like docked to a thing, that'd be pretty cool, like a station. I think that would look super sweet, very very sweet. It might require some different shelving, a different shelving system, but that would be super cool. All right, let's see. Let's get a question from somebody else. The Shadow Guard recannoned. Is that the I have to Google them real quick because I think I know what that is, but I don't want to. Shadow Guard. Yeah, that's exactly who I thought it was. Yes, those are pretty cool. I don't know what they were from because I don't think I ever read any of the books with them in them. Most of the books that I've read are actually more of the new canon stuff. But yeah. All right. Let's see. Dexinator Dawned. What did I think of Rebels? I don't know if everybody watching is caught up with Rebels so far. So I'm not going to talk about anything spoilery, or if I can help it. Hopefully I don't let something slip. But yeah, Rebels the second half has been amazing so far. We got one more episode, and it's going to be a 90-minute episode. It's going to be amazing. I'm sure they're going out with a bang. I actually thought the first half of season 4 was bad. And I don't like to say that it's bad, but I thought it was bad, at least when you compare it to the previous couple of seasons. Like seasons 2 and 3 were awesome. Season 2 would have been my favorite season overall, if not for Thrawn showing up in season 3. That was a big deal. It was a big deal. So yeah, but when season 4 came out, their episodes just didn't feel all that great. Some of them had good parts, and it wasn't awful or terrible, but it was just kind of below the bar. They raised the bar up really high, and I feel like they failed to meet it, at least on a consistent basis. So that's why I called it bad. But now the second half, they're exceeding the bar. Yeah, no spoilers. It's just general overall opinions, and that they're good. So hopefully that's not spoilery for everybody. All right. Domaku asks, do you think FFG might be releasing another campaign expansion at some point? Absolutely. I don't know for which game would get it, though. I could see a lot of the games getting it. I mean, first off, Imperial Assault could totally get it if you saw, that they're, the artwork and stuff for all the promo materials that are coming. Definitely looks like Imperial Assault is getting a Star Wars Rebels based wave next, and of course that will be campaign. But I think you meant games that already get campaign stuff. So for any of the other games, I could see a campaign. They haven't done something like that for X-Wing yet. Samuel M asked me, do you play Heroes of the Atari Cluster for X-Wing? I have never played that. I have friends who have played it. I've talked to people about it. I've seen people playing it. It's cool. It's very cool. I have a hard time doing campaigns just because I spread myself a little thin. I play a lot of different games, and I cover a lot of different games for the channel. So it's hard for me to sit down and say, all right, I'm going to play 14 sessions of this one game, and you have to kind of do it in close proximity, otherwise you forget what the heck the point was of the campaign. Like if you do a game now and don't do another one for a month, are you going to even remember what was significant about your last game and what so I feel like if you're going to do a campaign, you have to do it at least once a week to keep it relevant. You should shoot for that, and I have a hard time doing that. Because there's like entire weeks go by that I don't get to play any X-Wing or Armada. I haven't played X-Wing in a couple of weeks, and I haven't played Armada in a couple of weeks either. Can I post more Destiny? That's a good question, Kai Seegers. I'm really not covering much in the way of Destiny anymore. For a couple of reasons. I'm not. It's not that I'm not going to post Destiny anymore. I'll still cover like news and announcements, but I haven't bought anything out of the latest wave. A couple of reasons. I do expect they're going to go with a Destiny version digital, and so I really expect that they're going to do that. And so I don't want to. I'm just thinking about money at this point. And because it's more of a money sink. I've spent so much money on Destiny, and I honestly haven't been having fun playing it. It's a fun game, but it's so competitive that nobody plays it casually. Like there's only tournaments, at least in my area, so it's hard for me to get any enjoyment at all. And I'm spending more on Destiny. I was spending more on Destiny than I was spending on X-Wing and Armada and Imperial Assault combined. And I was having a terrible time because people were playing mill, and I don't like mill. I don't like games that there's a mechanic that basically stops the other person from even playing. I don't like it when I can't even make any decisions. Like when, and I was playing a lot of people who had decks like that. So it really turned me off to Destiny. So yeah, I'm just not I'm getting out of Destiny right now a little bit. I'm saving my money because if it does come out digitally, I'm going to cover it hardcore because I loved playing Magic the Gathering online. Because you can find casual games that way. I think it's a great game to play in a kind of a fun format. But I don't like the current state of the competitive system because it just seems like it's too, like you're in the meta or you shouldn't even come. And it's just a little too competitive for me to enjoy. And I, and that's just my taste. And a lot of people like that sort of thing, so I'm not condemning it for that. All right, let's go see. Let's see what else we've got. But when major things come out for Destiny, I will still keep aware of them because I do enjoy the game. I just, it's too much of a money sink and it's not giving me enough reward right now. What are my theories of Wave 8 of Armada for the Empire? So we're seeing Dreadnoughts. Knight Rider 123 asked that. We're seeing Dreadnoughts, and we've also seen the Arrestor Cruiser come out. But those might be so new that they haven't made it into testing because it takes a long time for a product to get designed, tested, and then printed and stuff. So I think the Dreadnought or the Arrestor Cruiser from the Solo movie could be coming. They could be in Wave 8. They might be Wave 9, or even after that. But otherwise, I really want to see a Venator. I really want to see a Venator show up. That's like at the probably at. Well, I was going to say that it was at the top of my list, but now that I've seen the Dreadnought's immediately the top of my list. But I don't want a Dreadnought to be an Imperial-only thing. I want that to be something that both factions can use, because the Rebels really need another medium ship. For Rebels, I'm almost certain that it's going to be the Dornian gunship or the Brahatok. All right, let's see. What's my favorite of the Star Wars games? Well, that shouldn't be too hard. For the board games, it's Armada. Or for the war games, it's Armada. For the board games, it's going to be Rebellion. Because there's not to be honest, there's not a whole lot of quality Star Wars like board games out there. You've got like Star Wars Risk is actually not bad. And they have like a Star Wars label on everything. We've got like a Star Wars Monopoly right here for the kids. So I don't know if that's really a Star Wars game. But as far as the mini war games where you build your army and stuff, it's probably Armada first, then X-Wing second, Imperial Assault third. Is there a fourth right now? I mean, Legion's gonna be there. Destiny's there too. Destiny has potential. I've just talked about Destiny. I put Destiny in last place right now, and then the LCG, but I never played the LCG. But yeah, Legion will be up there. I don't know what place it's going to have. I have a feeling Armada is always going to stay my favorite just because I love the tactics involved in it. But I know I see people, X-Wing is better than Armada. I see that. No, look, a lot of people love X-Wing. I started out, I owe a huge debt to X-Wing. X-Wing was my first tabletop game. It got me into tabletop gaming. It got me into board games. It got me into everything. X-Wing was my gateway game. It opened a whole new world for me, and I'll never forget that. I love X-Wing for that purpose. One of the things that's turned me off a little bit to X-Wing lately is just that it tends to be very, very, very competitive, and it's falling into a little bit of a power sink right now. If X-Wing, I think the game really just kind of needs a reboot. Needs to go back to, like, I think if they come up with an X-Wing 2.0 someday, I'm going to be very, very happy, especially if it's done in a really good way so as to not screw everybody over. I just think, like, we need pilot cards. I'm tired of buying a ship and having, for every ship I've got like 4 different cardboard chits that can freely be the bases, and I have so much storage. I have more cardboard storage than I have ships in storage, and so, like, there's little things like that are pet peeves of mine. Yes, according to the Disney Star Wars comics, the Empire is still using Venators after Yavin. That's awesome to know. I know they were in use heavily in some of the books, in some of the early Empire books, and it was cool. Like in Thrawn, they're using them, and Tarkin, they're using them, and Lords of the Sith, they're using them, and so yeah. But and it depends if they were, they were mostly phased out, but some of them, I mean, look, the Empire had a lot of galaxy to cover. It makes sense that they're going to send some of the old Republic ships, if they're still serviceable, out to, the stretches of places that maybe aren't that important. African polar bear, have I been to the void? Oh, yes, I have. I did a whole video about it because it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. If you guys have not done Secrets of the Empire by The Void, it's totally amazing. It's one of the greatest things you will ever experience. It's phenomenal, and I don't want to spoil it by telling you too much about it, but it's super, super good. And it was one of the best days of my life. I was so crazy good. Do I play Matt Laxton? Do I play Magic the Gathering? No, I used to. I used to play a long time ago. And I spent about $30,000 on cards over like maybe 15 years of playing. And then I eventually sold it all. I sold my online stuff for about $1,000, and I sold my physical stuff for about $800. No more than that, for probably about $1,200 total. Chris Safaric, I really like your typo negative paint scheme for your Armada ships. Thank you, I appreciate it. Big fan of that band. All right, let's see. I missed a couple of questions. Let's go back up here. X-Wing is better for getting into a mini game. I can understand that, but I guess it all depends. I think X-Wing has more immediate appeal because at a glance, initially, I think it's simpler to learn, but it has there's so much depth to X-Wing now as far as all the different waves and all the different ships and all the different upgrade cards. It can give you analysis paralysis just by trying to figure out, like, oh, this pilot has an elite pilot talent. What EPT can I put on there? Oh, we only have 145 different options to choose from. Why don't you read each one of them and determine the best one? And that's one of the problems. Like, it's one of the things I like about Armada is that there's like, oh, this ship has a weapons team. Okay, well, there's only 7 weapons teams in the game, period. There's only 7. So, which, I don't even know if it's 7. It's something like, well, now I have to look it up because somebody's going to be like, no. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I was close. Off the top of my head, I was pretty close. But yeah, so there's only like, you know what I'm saying. So I like that there. It's easier to kind of to think about strategies and synergies and stuff like that. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. What was my favorite song by Typo Negative? There's so many. First one, their version of Summer Breeze was one of my favorites. And it's Be My Druidess was good. Love You to Death. September Sun is really good. I like stuff across the entire spectrum, but generally stuff off of Bloody Kisses and October Rust are my favorite, especially if I've got a nice sound system and I can really hear the bass. Then that's going to do it. Christian Woman, probably one of my favorites too. And We Hate Everyone, but only the final portion, not the beginning stuff with the bow wow wow wows and stuff like that. But the beginning, like after the 2-minute mark and it busts into the actual core of We Hate Everyone, that's my favorite Typo Negative song. So that's my favorite half song. All right. Was I underwhelmed by the Solo trailer? No, I was actually kind of impressed. I was underwhelmed with the idea of them making a Han Solo movie at all. And to be in full disclosure, I'm a big Star Wars fan. But I didn't think they needed to make a Han Solo movie. I felt like I know all I needed to know about his past. He was a scoundrel, and he did the Kessel Run, and he saved Chewbacca, and he won the Falcon from Lando. Got it. I know his backstory. Didn't need a movie about it. So, and especially with hearing some of the drama that like the 21 Jump Street directors were making Han Solo into too much of a comedy, and so Disney had to replace them, but like 80% of the movie was already done at that point. I'm thinking, oh, this movie's going to be like going to be really, really jokey and stupid. And I don't mind comedy in Star Wars, but I don't want the whole movie to be comedy unless it seems right, and it doesn't seem like a Han Solo movie should do that. So when I saw the trailer, I thought it felt like it had a Blade Runner feel to it. And I really like the Blade Runner. I like the old and the new one, even though it's like the new one especially was very slow and it had a lot of exposition on characters and stuff. But I expected that going into it, so I wasn't disappointed. And I really loved the atmosphere, the sound, the darkness, and I loved so much of that whole noir aspect. And I feel like this is going to have that same feel, and that excites me. I'm also excited to the fact that we're going to see new ships and new technology, new vehicles. That's cool. There's a new TIE fighter in there, but it didn't show me enough to make me annoyed. So that's interesting. I am noticing inconsistencies though, or I'm fearing inconsistencies, because one of the things, like the story group got rid of EU, so they wouldn't have to like step over their own feet and like, oh, we can't do that because that's contradicted by this story. But I just finished reading a book from a certain point of view, and I'm already, even within that book, I'm noticing inconsistencies. Like they talk about, there's multiple stories going on from Yavin. One of them mentions that they had more pilots than ships. So there was a lot of pilots left on Yavin that couldn't go fly. But then, like 2 stories later, there's somebody else's point of view and how there were so many extra ships because they didn't have enough pilots to fly all of the ships. And I'm like, come on, guys, which did you have? Did you have more pilots than ships? Did you have pilots left on Yavin? Or did you have empty ships left on Yavin? Can't have it both ways, you know? And so, in a similar story, they're talking about Lando, who was the greatest pilot of the Millennium Falcon. There's a story about Lando, and he mentions briefly that he was the greatest pilot, and the only person who was even close to being able to fly the Millennium Falcon as good as him was Han Solo. And I'm like, okay, that seems contradictory because at least in this little clip from the Solo movie, you see Lando sitting in the back seat and Han Solo flying in the front. So it makes me worried that they're going to forget about that and they're going to be like, oh no, Han's the greatest starfighter pilot. Lando's not that great of a pilot, you know. So the movie needs to stress Lando, and the movie needs to stress Lando as a good pilot, potentially better than Han Solo, because then at least I'll feel better about it. Let's see, and I talked a whole lot about that. Yeah, I could see. All right, let's see. Yeah, I agree. Solo, Blade Runner meets Mad Max meets American Graffiti. There are parts of all of those in there, absolutely, and I think that's appropriate because they're all, well, except Mad Max, they're all Harrison Ford movies. You know, Blade Runner, Han Solo, in Star Wars, and American Graffiti, and it's I think that's the way to do it. I think it's a great way to do it. I just hope they don't. Actually, I don't really hope. It'd be really funny if they had a little cameo of Harrison Ford's dad. I mean, Han Solo's dad, and it's Harrison Ford playing him. Although that's something that like all the remakes of like the '90s would always do, you know. So I don't think they need to do that, but I wouldn't complain because if anytime we get to see Harrison Ford on screen, I'm fine with. All right. There's some stuff about Episode 9. I gotta scroll up a little bit. We're talking about Episode 9 should. So somebody's you're more hopeful for Solo than 9. I'm actually really hopeful. So some of you guys are more hopeful for 9 should be good with J.J. Abrams. Interesting. I was thinking about making a video about this, but I don't think it was enough to really talk for a while. So I'll talk to you guys about it. Apparently, J.J. Abrams, after he made 7, he had an outline and a story plan for both 8 and 9, which we know that he didn't follow. Ryan Johnson kind of threw a lot of 8 out and kind of had. Basically gave the finger to JJ. And so there was those moments, and I didn't really like that. And I don't know if he was really giving him the finger or if it was just like, let's mess with the audience by managing their expectations. And maybe we'll look back on 8. I still like 8. Like, I stand by my opinion that 8 was a good film. There was things I didn't like about 8, but it was a good film in my opinion. In that it told me this message of letting go of the past. You need to let go of the original trilogy if Star Wars is going to go forward as a franchise. I feel like that's what 8 was telling me. And it did it in a painful way, but it was also painful but beautiful. Like, I didn't want certain things to happen, and I wanted answers to certain questions that I didn't get. I'm pretty sure JJ would have answered some of those questions, or it maybe answered things differently. But I'm very hopeful for 9 because for the first time with Episode 9, we don't know what's happening. We don't even really have any idea. I mean, we have some very rough ideas, but like 8, 8 was picking up right where 7 left off. So you had a ton of expectations. With 9, there's going to be years in between. I mean, it might be 1 year, it might be 4 years. I'm guessing somewhere around 2 to 3. Just a rough guess because I mean, how much you need a little bit of time to build up a new rebellion, especially one worthy of a movie's worth of fighting, right? So there's that. Maybe we'll see Finn working with Rey on a new Jedi Academy. Then she learned some stuff from Leia. Maybe Leia also told Finn a few things, because obviously we're not going to have Carrie Fisher in it, but Leia has the Force. She's much stronger than we knew. I think that was the whole point of the Mary Poppins scene, which people are making fun of, and I don't think it's fair to really make fun of it that much. Although, as Star Wars fans, we are totally allowed to nitpick on Star Wars because that's our thing, right? We can do that. We just shouldn't fight with each other over it. It's okay to nitpick, but the other people you're talking to, you got to be cool because they're Star Wars fans too, and we all love this. We may love different things about it, but we've got to be united in our nitpicking, right? But so I really have no idea what they're gonna do with 9. So I have no expectations. So I can't really be let down. If anything, I'm just let down that they didn't bring Billy D. Williams. Like, he should have at least been sitting down at Canto Bight. I get he's an old dude. I get that he probably isn't going to be doing flips and roll arounds and tossing the cape and shooting the camera and stuff. But he could have been sitting down playing cards and being like, well, I know where you could find this master code breaker. He's right over there, but look out. The authorities are on your tail. Something like that. It would have been as simple as a little kid. He belonged there, Like, you could have had him just sitting down. And why not? That's what I want. Why not? Why is Lando not? But yeah. So I'm going back to some questions. You're right, Mr. Pete. Lando, he is a great pilot. He did, and I agree. But what's his pilot skill in X-Wing versus what's Han Solo's pilot skill in X-Wing? All right. To Scott Matthews, you are very welcome, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Let's see. On a 1 to 10, how do I rate Thrawn in Armada? Chris Safarik asks, I rate Thrawn about a 7. A 7? No, maybe an 8. I think he's worthy of an 8. And that's really good. He fits most fleets, but he's not somebody that works on every list because of the fact that, like, I've run him with like a 2-star destroyer list. He's just not really good with like 2 ships. You kind of need a lot of ships to get more benefit out of him. I think he works best with ships that are carriers and you're running a lot of squadrons, so you can bank your squadron tokens there and then do other stuff, because then when you're running a lot of squadrons, you have, the more commands are even more meaningful. If you're not running a lot of squadrons, you really only have 3 commands, so he's like 33% less good, or maybe 25% less good because you out of the 4 commands. So he's a little bit more dependent on certain fleet types. He's less universal, but he's also gets points for style because he's Thrawn. But I give him an 8 because he's still kind of universal. All right. What are your predictions for Gregory asks? What are your predictions for Legion units possibly being able to either be used by either faction, i.e. the Rebel ATST or Imperial ATRT? I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do too many dual faction stuff. I think the closest you get to that is like the ATPT, I think it is, the one that Rex has in Rebels that was from the Clone Wars. I think you'll see a Rebel version of that, even though that, in theory, should be an Imperial unit. So I think you'll see stuff like that. Or just kind of like how the Quasar is in Armada, where you see the Rebels using it, but it's an Imperial unit. I think those things where it could go either way, it's going to side on the side where game balance matters the most. And the Rebels are the ones you see least with like larger vehicles. So let's see. All right, we got going up. Let's see. All right, what's my favorite miniature for Star Wars Legion? That's probably the ATST. I mean, it's huge. It's really big. I like big miniatures. Aside of that, probably the Rex. The Rex Rebel Trooper, because that's awesome. Should be 4 years. Yeah, should be. Maybe it should be 4 years after. I'm not sure how much longer 9 is going to be after 8. All right, let's see. Gunboats for Armada, DJ Turbo says. Maybe we'll get gunboats for Armada. I'm starting to change my stance on squadrons a little bit and have more of an appreciation for using squadrons in Armada. And so I'm starting to get to the point where some new squadrons would add a little bit of extra variety, but it wouldn't be... Because squadrons have a really good balance right now. Like, there's not a whole lot more we need in squadrons. So we could add, just a little bit more here and there. Maybe some just for fun, A hologram memorial for Leia, that's possible. They did say, though, that they would not be using footage of Leia, although a hologram might be kind of in that gray area. but that would be fine. I expect maybe a statue or definitely a ship like the Leia or the Organa or something like that, and have it be like a support ship. I actually would love to see twin ships, like sister ships. And one's called the Leia, one's called the Luke, and Luke is like the battleship, and Leia's like this support ship that can extend shields over friendly ships, and she like saves a whole bunch of like smaller ships from an assault, while Luke comes in from the side, and something like that would be awesome. All right, Matt Laxon, do you play any role playing games? No, not at the moment. I've heard really good things about the Star Wars role-playing game from FFG, and I want to, but that's like one of those things, like a campaign type game that I just can't commit to. And because I don't do the YouTube channel full time. I work as a network administrator. So between work and YouTube and family, I've got 3 kids and a wife. And they're awesome, and they are deserving of more of my time than I give them. So I really can't commit to doing any kind of campaign. I want to. So maybe when I get older and like the kids are grown and they move out or whatever, and I have a lot more free time, I might, settle down doing. Tyler, am I playing Armada this weekend? I might try and get up for a game on Sunday. We'll see. It kind of depends. I was in Las Vegas and California for about a week, and I just got home last night. So I have a lot of stuff to catch up on, so I might be free on Sunday to play. I'm hoping I am. I know we have some stuff on Saturday, family stuff to do, but I might get some time to play on Sunday. All right, what's my view on the prequel trilogy for X-Wing? I'm all for it now. I think we've had so much of the sequel trilogy that the prequel trilogy now, though I once despised it, has kind of aged like a wine for me. And now, even though I acknowledge the flaws of the prequel trilogy, its ships and technology and the fancy eye candy, and Natalie Portman. No, I'm sorry. That's not fair. That's not nice. But I like the prequels now. I don't love them, but I like them. They have a much fonder place in my mind. I think because they've asked. But yeah, we need more prequel stuff. There was some kind of, I believe there was some kind of rule that they couldn't do straight up like Clone Wars era stuff or straight up prequel stuff if it didn't also exist in the Galactic Civil War. And I don't know why that is, and I don't know the politics of it, but I think there's a reason that they don't, do all of that older stuff yet. And it's harder and few and far between for them to be able to do that. Prequel for Armada 2, absolutely. And I live in Florida. I live in Orlando, Florida. I've mentioned that several times. But yes, let's see. You see some prequel squadrons prequel squadrons, prequel trilogy stuff for Armada. I would love that. It's one of the things I think the Clone Wars and the prequel movies did really well was they stressed that naval style combat in space, and it was done really, really well. And it's a shame that we don't get those ships for Armada. I mean, we have points. We could balance those things, and there's some really cool ships. I mean, the Venator would be great, and maybe another way to do it is to just. The only problem with doing prequel is like, where do you put General Grievous? He can't be working for the Empire, right? So it becomes this tricky. Like, do we want to add like 2 more factions? Because if you're going to add, the Trade Federation or the CIS ships, then don't you then also have to add the Republic? But how can you have the Republic and also separately have the Empire? So it's a really tricky balance. I would say give all the Republic stuff to the Empire, give all the CIS stuff to the Rebels, because we've seen, at least in the books, people like Cham Syndulla using lots of old CIS stuff, like usually not capital ships, but like the Vulture droids, Tri-Fighters, or not Tri-Fighters, maybe them, but there was a lot of that type of stuff being used by Rebels throughout all of the early Empire days. So I think some of that stuff it would be appropriate to be able to belong to the Rebels. What am I buying for Legion at start? Battleship Bismarck asks. I answered this earlier, but I'm going to get 2 core sets. I think most people should get 3 core sets to be maxed out on everything that comes in the core set. I'm only getting 2 plus 1 of each, trooper and ATRT and speeder bike, so I can do unboxings. And that's basically it. So, so you guys will have, be able to see it. There's some upgrades that come in there. I don't think they're that crucial because those same upgrades are also coming in other forms. In the vehicle packs, you're getting the same upgrades in the ATST and the Snowspeeder. And in the trooper packs, you're getting those same upgrades in the Snow Trooper and then the Fleet Trooper. So there's nothing exclusive that you have to buy those core set expansion packs for, unless you just absolutely can't wait for like the Snow Speeders. I'm sorry, it's the Snow Troopers and the Fleet Troopers. And I can wait, but I got to do those for you guys. So I'm gonna pick up, a little bit more. Plus, there's alternate sculpts in those too, which is, and if that's a big deal, go for it. All right. Why does it have to make canon sense? What are we like putting CIS on the Rebel side? I think it does just because that's the trend. That's the way it always has been. Like things, they're not going to give stormtroopers to the Rebels. That wouldn't make canon sense. If that's what you were asking about, like why would the CIS go to the Rebels? I think if you break the canon or you break the immersion too much, then you take something away from the game. So it has to kind of line up. But I think you couldn't put General Grievous on the same side as Luke Skywalker. Like I don't think it's going to work. So I think like the Clone Wars just represents like a bridge too far to do it strictly Clone Wars. Now they could take all those old ships and repurpose them, so you can have old CIS ships on the Rebel side, but you can't. I don't think you can have people like General Grievous and Count Dooku commanding them. You'll have to have other people commanding them. Like maybe do like how they did the Arc 170 in X-Wing. Like you take some book characters or people like, hey, you know what? Okay, Sinjir from the Aftermath trilogy is now on board this old CIS cruiser and things like that. Let's see. 2 new factions for Armada. I mean, yeah, but then the problem is now you have a 4-faction game, and now balance is going to be potentially way harder. I'm okay with that, but does that mean I'm going to have to buy like a whole bunch more Hammerheads, Architans? I've already got 5 Architans. How many more Architans am I going to have to buy now? I don't have enough room. Like this whole shelf. This is a 4 tiered shelf. It goes all the way down to the floor. It's full. It's close to full. It's about 80% capacity right now. I can't have 2 more factions. I don't know what I would do. Maybe I just need to get another house that's just for Armada, or figure out a different storage solution. All right. Let's see. My thoughts is it would be fun to pit Republic against Empire. Yeah, it probably would. I just think the easiest way for them to do it is just to print, like, the same way they did the Architans, Imperial versions of Rebel cruisers. And this way, if you want, you can repaint them in Republic colors and just kind of simulate it that way, because it's the same tech. That's what I'm thinking. That seems like it's the best way to kind of please everybody, at least partially. How about Black Sun as a fleet in Armada? I don't know what kind of capital ships Black Sun has. I know they got, a significant fighter presence, but I don't think they have enough capital ships to be able to rival the Empire. So I don't know how well that would work. Any strategies for just the core sets? You got 2. They're kind of balanced against each other, but one of the things you want to do with the core set is try to get to the weak spots of your opponent's ships. The Empire's weak spot out of the core sets is the rear. The Victory Star Destroyer is weakest on its rear, so you want to take advantage of like the Corellian Corvette's speed and snake those behind the Victories. For the Imperial players, and for your Nebulons, you want your Nebulons pointed straight at the enemy so that they don't hit the sides. And this way, if you can make them only be able to have a shot on your front, then that's where the most of your shields are, and that's also you're going to be pointed at them. And opposite for the Imperial player, you want to, if you've got 2 core sets and you're running 2 Victories, you probably don't want them both going the same way. you probably want to like maybe have them out a little bit, or get have some double coverage, but try to be able to get side arc shots on the Nebulons, and and make it to where if somebody's not going to basically have shots on both of your rear arcs at the same time. I used to do this with victories where I would send one out a little more and then try to do like a crossover maneuver with them, so that if somebody had one of my rears, if somebody had a shot on my rear, that meant I also had a front arc shot on them. You can try that if you only have 2 core sets. The best I can do on short notice. Don't forget your squadrons either. Squadrons are important. Is there any way to make TIE strikers work in tournament settings? With the way bombs are running, you're talking about X-Wing. They're not super good with all the bombs that are out there, but ailerons would be good. Try to get your pilot skill high enough to, beat a Captain Nim with VI. I don't know. Empire is just kind of hurting right now. Like, I think you kind of got to go with Defenders and Ions maybe for Empire. Gunboat Alpha Strike is could work. Let's see. All right, let's see. I should release card packs. I think they should release card packs. I think they'll do something similar. Like we saw a card pack type of thing with the Corellian conflicts for Armada. It was no plastic. It was all cardboard, but it was more than just cards because you were also getting, you were getting, a campaign. So I think if they're going to do card packs for other games, it needs to be something like that. Like maybe they would release a space station that's decorative, and it can also take the place of, and maybe it's a special scenario. It's just you're playing the space station, and it's a great model. It's only for casual games. It's not a tournament thing, but it also comes with cards that you can use for your tournament games. Something like that. How about Boba for Legion? When will he come out? I think Boba Fett is a sure thing for Legion, but I have no idea when he'll come out. And I don't think he'll be. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. CM Young, the Clone Wars ships have such unique armaments, it might break the game. I can agree with that in some aspects, like Grievous's big ship that has that huge ship-disabling ion cannon on it, right? That's, I'm okay with stuff like that as long as it's point costed appropriate, and if there's a way that they could balance it for the game. Like something like that might be such a, important ship that maybe it's a 300 point ship, and so like that has to be basically virtually your whole list. Advice for somebody going into an X-Wing tournament for the first time: well, make sure you have all of your stuff. Make sure you have like every focus and target lock you need. Try not to bring your entire collection. Try to set up everything on a tabletop before you go for your first X-Wing tournament. Make sure you've got enough target locks, focuses, evades, all of that stuff. You're going to need shield tokens, your damage deck. Make sure your damage deck's complete. Make sure you mark off your guys. Like if you're running multiple TIE fighters, mark them with the numbers and make sure you have enough numbers for all that stuff ahead of time. Don't forget things like ion tokens, and all those extra little tokens that somebody else could potentially put on your ships. It's nice to have those. Don't forget stress tokens. And if you're looking for a list, if you're going for your first tournament, think about it like this. You're going to be playing X-Wing all day. Most tournaments are several rounds, so you're going to be, or for at least for a couple of hours. You're going to probably play like 3 or 4 games of X-Wing. So if you've played X-Wing enough times, I would say try to pick a list that you'd feel comfortable with playing 4 times in a row. And maybe that's a list that has some things that you have to make choices on, like maybe crack shots, like one of those cards you have to choose whether or not you want to use it. Maybe you're playing a ghost and you want to choose when you deploy it. So as opposed to something that's just straight up like you don't really have much choice. Like you're just flying, Han shoots first, right? Or basically a fat Millennium Falcon and another turret shit like a Y-wing with ion turret, like something like turrets, for example. You don't have to make that many choices. You've fly wherever you want. You're always going to have a shot. And just doing the same thing over and over again, that'll be really boring. Doing that, unless, of course, you have a list that's boring, but you're sure it's going to win. But my general opinion is go to a tournament and have a great time playing, multiple games over and over again. That's my opinion. David K asks, am I still playing Scythe? I have played Scythe a couple of times. It's a fun game. I like the deluxe components that came with the Kickstarter deluxe version. A buddy of mine has kind of went all in on it and has everything. The airship expansion is cool. Although my last game that I played, I got completely hosed. So I had a poor experience on my last time playing Scythe. However, it's a fun game. I do like it. My personal experience, how big of a following will Legion get? I think it's going to get pretty big. It really is hard to say, though, because I think a lot of it's contingent upon a 40K crowd jumping on board. Because a lot of people who play like X-Wing and Armada, one of the appeals of this game is that you don't have to paint it. It's you don't have to assemble it. It's a turnkey kind of game. Like, oh, I'm going to buy this and go. Legion requires a little bit more dedication to the gaming. So, I think that's going to do it. All right, Mr. Pete, thanks for stopping by. You have a good night. I'm actually going to be probably ending this pretty soon. I don't think I'm going to go for too much longer. Let's see let's field a couple more questions while I can. Why are E-Wings so good in canon and so crappy in both Armada and X-Wings? So I think I have to do Francisco Guerra is asking me this. Pardon me. E-Wings, up until just recently, they haven't been good in canon specifically. And what I mean by that is they're in Legends. So I think what you mean is why were they so good, in the books, in the EU books? And that's really a tough question. I think when E-Wings came out in X-Wing, they thought they were going to be better than they were, especially because you had this amazing Corran Horn pilot, who's still actually, a good pilot in the game, being able to shoot twice. Still a great ability. But they just made them too fragile, and I think they should have been a little tougher. That's what I think. Now, in X-Wing, in Armada, they went a completely different route with them. They give them snipe, which I don't know. Sometimes I think an ability, like if you look at the Jump Master, from what I've heard is that like the Jump Master was like just not tested at a certain level. Like the people who tested the Jump Master had no idea how people were going to look at it competitively, and they just thought it wasn't really, and that it was okay, coming out the way it was. And I think the E-Wing might be a similar thing, where maybe somebody who was playtesting it said, oh, these E-Wings are really good, snipe is a great ability. And then, when it hit tabletops, people were like, no, we don't want to use this. There's better options for cheaper, And I think that's what happened. Is sometimes people just miss the mark. And at least in E-Wings are good in X-Wing if it's Corran Horn. But, yeah. All right. Okay, so David K. So hiding squadrons. So here's what happens. If there is an obstacle in between when you're tracing your line of sight from the yellow dot to like the center of the squadron, if an obstacle is in between that, then the attack is obstructed. And what that means is if you're let me get an obstacle. I'm gonna show you. And it becomes pretty cool. I'm going to use this debris. I'm going to use a ship and a squadron. Okay. So, here. All right. So this squadron gets like right here, right? Can you see? You know what? No, let's do it this way. All right. Now, this would be an obstructed attack both ways, because there is stuff here. Now, if the squadron was actually touching the ship, then it would not be obstructed. Like, especially if this guy bumped it. But it would be obstructed. Now, there being obstruction here is important for a couple of reasons. Because it also stops engagements. So if there was another squadron, like two different squadrons... Here, let's do X-Wing. All right. These guys are not engaged because obstruction stops the engagement. Now, these guys are engaged now. The difference is they're touching. But, yes, and you're drawing in the line of sight with squadrons is always to the center pole, the center point. So, the obstruction does happen even if you're in range 1. If the squad, and so it's a really nice strategy sometimes to park squadrons right in the middle of one of the larger obstacles, especially a squadron that you don't really want to be tied up by that many enemy squadrons. Somebody like Maul or Mythal is actually really nice to be able to park in one of those places so that he can jump wherever you need him to jump to, but he can't be interrupted quite so easily. So that's a nice little free little bit of strategy there. All right, let's see what else we're doing. So Arc 7271 tells me the Tarkin novel, the Rebels used a Providence-class dreadnought, which was the old Separatist capital ship. I hadn't put that together, so it's been a while since I read Tarkin, to be honest with you. It was one of the first, one of the earlier Star Wars books I read when I was trying to get caught up on all the canon books, so thanks for that. That's awesome. Have I made an announcement for the giveaway of Siege Storm? No, I have not yet. That's going to have about another week left on it. And what he's talking about is there's a game called Siege Storm I did a review of, and this one you can win this. You just got to check out the Siege Storm review and how to play. And the cool thing, I'm going to talk to you guys about this real quick, because they sent me this. They wanted me to review it. So they sent it out to me for free, so I'm going to give it to you guys for free. But I really like Awakened Realms, and I asked them if I could review some of their games, and that's how I got my Lords of Hellas early from them, and I really like Lords of Hellas so far too. But this is it was going to be like a Magic the Gathering kind of collectible game, but they've changed it. I think they got a lot of feedback from people who don't like collectible games. And so they said, all right, the format's going to change. They told their marketing guy, I talked to him, and he's like, we're looking at doing it as more of a living card game. So when you buy an expansion, you're going to get the entire set of cards, and it's not going to be random boosters. And I think that's definitely a better way to go with card games, is just have a set. If you want a certain card, you buy this set and you get it. That really works for X-Wing. That works for LCGs. I think it's a great game going forward, or a great idea, moving forward. And it's a fun game. So, but yeah, I will be doing. You can win that. But just check out my video. Leave a comment on that video. It's the only way to win that one. What are some commanders you want to see for Legion? All of the principal characters, right? We got Luke and Leia, right? Han, Chewie, Lando. Pretty cool with some of the high brass, like your General Riken, your Mon Mothmas and stuff like that. But definitely all of them. I would like to see some EU stuff show up too. I think I'd love to see the Rebels crew, especially Hera. I have never played Android Netrunner. No. The only LCG, and it's not even one of FFG's LCGs that I really played a lot of, was this game called Doomtown. Doomtown Reloaded by AEG. Played that for quite a bit, and that was a lot of fun. Let's see. Do I think Armada will see more support for raid tokens? Oh man, raid tokens, they're cool. I don't think we'll see a whole lot more support for raid tokens. I did a short bat. I think it was a shorter bat rep, but raid tokens won me a game, and it was really cool. And I don't think that they're completely broken, but I think there's new ways to implement them, and I think we'll see more of that. Especially with the speed, the stuff that can mess with speed. So like Titus, I think is Commander Titus. What is he? What is? I gotta find his. He's an Imperial. But if you can reduce somebody's speed and then use raid tokens to potentially stop them from speeding back up, that can be really, really powerful. Some ships want to go full speed, right? Or it's really good against squadrons too. If you can stop them from doing the squadron command, it can be really good against that. So there are uses for them. They're just a little bit harder, to implement right now. And I think we might see more things. Admiral Titus, that's what it is. You can reduce an enemy's speed by 1 at the start of the game. So anybody who starts at speed 1, all right, you can set them to 0. Now they're stuck having to do nav every turn to try to speed up and get back into the game. And if you manage to get if you manage to get a ship all the way over there, and especially since these guys have rogue, you can the Imperial guys, the Gauntlet fighters have rogue. You can send them over there and start hitting them with nav raid tokens. It's also nice to hit somebody like mid game in the middle of a fight with engineering raid tokens. If it rewards you being able to guess what your opponent's going to do, though. Definitely rewards that. So I like that. It needs some play, though. It needs some more play. I think they're fun, but you don't have to use them every time. Oh, okay. Francisco Guerra. Favorite and least favorite Star Wars film. I'm only going to go off of like the big films. I'll include Rogue One on all the episodes because I'm not going to include like the Battle of Endor or the Ewok movies and stuff like that. Least favorite probably Episode 2. I've always kind of said it was enjoyable at the time, but one of the hallmarks of Episode 2, in my opinion, was when you finally got to see Yoda fight, and then they did an even better Yoda fight scene in Episode 3. So that really left Episode 2 like as just a love story, and then this cool fight scene, but there's totally an even better one in the next movie. So like Episode 2 doesn't have that many highlights for me. A lot of it was kind of a bummer. So Episode 2, least favorite. Most favorite, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, most favorite, because that was my first Star Wars movie that I think I really have a vivid memory of seeing. I still, to this day, love the Battle of Endor. And I don't mind the Ewoks because my first Halloween costume was an Ewok, and I need to find that. Favorite Star Wars-based video game. Call of Duty, what's going on, man? Favorite Star Wars-based video game. Boy, there's a lot of really good choices right now. Right now, it's Battlefront 2, only because that's like the only one for PC. And it's not even that great. It's just I'm a sucker for the nice graphics, and I do like part of like the Starfighter stuff. I didn't play the X-Wing games as much, but a friend of mine showed them to me recently because some of them I totally missed because I didn't have a computer. I was pretty poor growing up. I didn't have a PC when I was like a teenager, so I never could really play those. But I know I would have loved them because they had so much designability and configure. You could configure like any battle you want. You want to take a B-Wing versus a Star Destroyer and load it up in the simulator? Good. Wait. Favorite bad Star Wars video games? Oh, God. But no, I'm going to say like my favorite Star Wars video game is probably The Force Unleashed. Because it came out in a time where we needed a good Star Wars. I'm sorry for Battlefront 2. I know I'm getting a lot of hate for saying. Oh, N64 Rogue Squadron was awesome. It really was. That was a great one. Shadows of the Empire has a good place in my heart too for N64 because that was the first one for N64, and it had all like the entire soundtrack for I think Empire Strikes Back in that game, and so like I still listen to the Empire Strikes Back soundtrack sometimes, and I'm thinking, oh, I remember this one from that level in Shadows of the Empire. And that was also at a good point in my teenage years, reading Shadows of the Empire and then playing through Shadows of the Empire. Will I be making an Imperial Assault shop guide anytime soon? I don't feel comfortable doing that because I haven't played enough Imperial Assault even over the last couple of years. I've only played a handful of times, so I don't feel like I could give you the type of in-depth advice I give for other games with that. But I will say this, and I've said this a couple of times, for Imperial Assault, buy the most recent stuff first. Whatever is the most recent thing to come out. So I believe that's going to be like Heart of the Empire, because that has like fixes to all the stuff in the core set. And all the most recent heroes, like the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, was a really, really good one. You gotta kind of have to have him. He's like OP. But other than that, like if the earlier stuff just is not as competitive. All right. Force Unleashed was absolutely great. I would love to see Starkiller and X-Wing. He's always at the top of my list for characters I want to see become recanonized. But he'd have to be toned down in power. He couldn't be like, oh, I'm just gonna pull Star Destroyers out of the sky with my, like you know that was fun at the time, especially for a video game. But you bring him into canon, he can't be pulling Star Destroyers out of the sky. I'm sorry, can't do it. Can't do it. Maybe like a Jedi Grand Master could potentially do that as an act of like, crazy intensity. It could do something like that. Which lightsaber design is my favorite? Oh, that's easy. It's the lightsaber nunchucks. The lightsaber of my own design. You see, each one of these has a lightsaber, but there's no buttons on the outside, right? Why is there no buttons on the outside? Well, because the button's on the inside. You activate them with the Force, and then you're like, when you're swinging them around, when it gets whoosh, like, when it gets out, you trigger it with the Force. It comes on, and then hits them, and then comes back off before it comes back. So you're like, and I don't know. I can't. It's too cramped in here for me to look stupid trying to mess with my lightsaber nunchuck. Now, out of the canon designs, I really like Luke's from Jedi. It's one of my favorites. The original, and then Maul. I really liked seeing the bladed saber on screen for the first time was great. I just wish they hadn't shown it in the trailer, because can you imagine like if you had only seen regular lightsabers and then all of a sudden you see like a saber staff for the very first time, like, and didn't know it wasn't spoiled in the trailer? It would have been amazing. All right, I'm gonna take a few more questions. Let's see. More full-length Armada bat reps on the way. When I can. I'm a little behind. I haven't been able to even play any games lately, so I will be trying to get some more of those at any time I can. Let's see. Sidious did have a very simple design. In X-Wing, is there an Imperial version of Kian Farlander? So somebody who can take just get rid of stress and turn it. I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody who can just get rid of stress at will. You have there's it usually isn't something that's exactly the same. Sometimes you have stuff that synergizes a little bit. Like you've got Palpatine, who even if a ship is stressed, he can turn anything into a crit potentially. But stuff like that. But best ways to counter Yavaris. You got to get him. I think fast ships with things like TRC. A lot of long range damage, so you can CR90s, TRC 90s could work to counter Yavaris if you get them at speed 4 and they're going around pretty fast, trying to hit those sides, like a couple of them, kind of trying to flank and do like a little pincer, is a good way to stop Yavaris. But I think fast ships is the best way, because Yavaris gets his strength by its squadrons not having to move. So if your ships are flying really fast and to where the Yavaris can't predict where you're going to end up, then that's the strength. So by moving fast, I think is the best way to kind of weaken Yavaris. Am I aware if there's an end date to Secrets of the Empire at Disney Springs? You've been looking to get tickets. I'm not aware of an end date. I know they're looking to expand. And I think if there's an end date to Secrets of the Empire, I don't think it will be an end of the Void. So it may just be a different episode, which the technology is what's amazing. The episode itself, like this specific adventure you go on, isn't the focus of it. The focus of it is on what you can do. Like you're going to get a blaster, you're going to be shooting stormtroopers, and it feels good. It feels really, really good. You feel like you're almost actually in a video game. The video game itself is, there's some cool highlights to it. There's definitely some cool highlights, but it's not like it's this amazing Oscar-worthy story. Like if they swap it out for a different episode, it's still going to be awesome. It's the tech and the immersion and the smells and the temperatures that you can feel and the things you see, and it's amazing. So amazing. I think it should be on until June. If they were going to close it down, I think they'd have to give you a couple months' notice, and we're getting closer to June, so definitely get tickets to it. Would I ever do a bat rep with a viewer-submitted list for X-Wing? Possibly. I haven't. X-Wing is harder for me to play lately, just because the night that our league night that's close by me is a night that is just highly contested in my household for things where my wife will want to do stuff and I'll have the kids and I can't go out. So and for me that's Thursdays. Thursdays usually my nights to play X-Wing if I can. And for the last month or so I've barely been able to get out on Thursdays. So it's fewer and far between for my X-Wing bat reps, but I need to make it a point to be playing more, especially with the T65 fix coming. You hate the squadron side of Armada. I get it. I felt like that way for a long time. There is some ways to just counter heavy squadron. Bring things like Mauler Mythal, things to shut down lots of squadrons. It's fun. Let's see. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm only doing a few more questions. All right. Let's see. All right. Could a list with a Lambda, a Phantom, and a TIE Striker work? Phantom would be fun. I mean, of course, anything can work, but how effective? The Lambda would probably have to have Palp, and he'd have to save Palp for defense. Bombs would really, really hurt you, because bombs would take out the Phantom and the TIE Striker pretty quickly. You'd be left with just a Lambda. So as long as I think if your opponent's not going with like a bomb-centric list, you'd have a chance. Yeah, agreed. Bombs will wreck it. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for me for tonight, guys. I want to thank you guys all so much for chiming in, for hanging out with me. And I will. I couldn't get to every question, so I apologize. I'm going to try to do these a little bit more often. So I will try to schedule them so when they're coming on. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed. Check out the Siege Storm video. There's like about another week left on this if you want to win a copy of Siege Storm, and I will be shipping that to you. So that's not going to be like gift card related. That's going to be something I'm actually shipping out. And more giveaways coming up like about every week or so. So I'll be starting another round of the giveaway probably tomorrow or the next day. So they're just always going to be starting up and just as quickly as they come. All right, guys, thank you so much. Make sure if you guys are watching this and it wasn't live, just ask questions and I will try to get to them. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.